pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to thank Brook Point High School's Navy JROTC for being with us tonight. Cadet Iglesias, Cadet Woolen, Cadet McFadden, and Cadet Leon, as well as the instructors of the JROTC program at Brook Point, Captain James O'Keefe and Petty Officer Michael Tucci. We have a motion for approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. I'd like to add number 10.10 for information, entitled Discussion of the School Board's March 26, 2019 Selection of Elementary Redistricting Plan E21 in light of new information not available to the school board on March 26 concerning true capacity of Moncure Elementary School as a Tier 2 class size reduction school and the impact on student learning and the planned programs at Moncure Elementary School to include option 3 for low incidence placement approved by the school board on February 3rd. Please.
We have a motion. Do we have, for an amendment, do we have a second?
I'll second. Second.
Well, I believe Ms. Hazard seconded that before you, Ms. Egan. All right, so we have a motion and second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, all right, well.
I have another motion. Motion to amend the agenda to limit the discussion on 10.09 to the transfer policy for elementary school students to exclude any discussion of changes for non-residents 2105, Code 2105, and 2105R.
All right, we have a second to that motion. All right, so we have two amendments proposed for the agenda. Do we want to vote on them separately or together?
We should say separately.
Separately? All right. Let's take a vote on the first amendment to add, was it 10.10? 10.10. To the agenda to amend item 10.10. Any discussion, any further discussion of that proposed amendment?
I'll just say I understand that it was going to be brought to the board anyhow, some way, but generally when things are brought...
That for me, I'm having a hard time hearing. I didn't hear what the second amendment was at all.
Hold on one second, Irene. As for discussion on this, I'll just say I understand that it's going to be brought to the board's attention. However, I'd like to have it on for information, because when anything is brought to the board for information, if there is going to be action in the future, it gets put on the agenda for information. So that's the only reason. I'd just like to see it on our agenda.
The audio on this is awful. Awful. Okay. Am I on the regular phone or am I on somebody's cell phone?
You're on somebody's cell phone.
Well, Sarah, is that Sarah?
Yep, that's me.
Okay, I can hear you just fine, but I can't hear anything that's coming from Jamie. Can you please reread that for me?
Here, let me give it to Jamie so you could give Jamie.
This is going to be a fun night.
I think she didn't hear it. She didn't hear yours. What do you need to hear?
Whatever the motion was.
Oh,
The second motion.
okay.
Oh, hi, Irene? Okay, the second motion is to amend the agenda to limit the discussion on 10.09. Do you have it in front of you, 10.09? Which is the transfer policy for elementary school students, And we're gonna exclude any discussion of any changes for non-residents, and the code is 2105 and 2105R. We're not making any changes, okay?
Thank you.
All right, I'll pass you back to Missy. Sorry, guys.
I wonder if we should, yeah, she's not going to be able to hear.
Yeah.
We might have to pass it back and forth. All right, well, any further discussion on Ms. Decatur's proposal to add an information item 10.10? No further discussion? All right, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Dr. Chase?
No.
Ms. Decatur?
Aye.
Ms. Egan?
Yeah.
Ms. Hazard?
Yes.
Ms. Healy?
No.
Mr. McCosker?
Nope.
And Ms. Young?
No.
Madam Chair, motion fails 4-3.
All right, now we have another proposed amendment to the agenda, which is to limit the discussion on the current item, information item 10.09, to student transfer policies for elementary school, specifically to exclude any discussion of transfers of non-resident students. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the purpose of that is, as discussed in our work session earlier this evening, there was no intention on the part of the school board to have this item as part of the discussion with the elementary school transfers. Not sure how it got out there, that it was, but it
Yeah, the
called
teachers.
social
wasn't
media.
from here.
Yeah, the employees of the county bombarded us with emails thinking that we were going to change 2105 employee transfers. That's dead on arrival. That's not going to happen. Take it out of your mind, all right? We're supporting you all 100%. Next topic.
Okay, all right, so this agenda item would limit that to the elementary school transfers of resident students. Discussion, it's on for information, just another information item. We discussed in the work session that we're going to need another information night on this, so this will not be coming back to the board for action until the first meeting in May. All right, all in favor of that motion to amend the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Ms. Egan, is that an aye or a nay?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so that motion carries unanimously. All right, that brings us to item 4, awards and recognitions, proclamation 4.01, Month of the Military Child. Mr. McOsker, would you
Okay, I get
please
the,
honor us?
this is the 8th time I think I've read this. I think it's the 8th time. 8 years on the board, yeah, I think that's it. So proclamation for the military child, real special to me, being a retired Army officer, so, and enlisted, I should say, so don't get that confused. I started off as enlisted.
All right, let's read the proclamation.
All right, so, thank you for keeping me on task,
Can't
Miss
kick him
Healy.
when he's sitting 2 seats down.
Whereas, ouch, I just got kicked by Mrs.
Thank you, Dr. Chase.
Dr. Chase just cat kicked me. Whereas Stafford County is proud to be the home of many children whose parents served in the military stationed throughout the local region. And whereas April has been designated by the Virginia Department of Education as the Month of the Military Child, which is a special month to recognize and pay tribute to military members and their children for the daily sacrifices made and for their commitment, courage, and unconditional support of our armed forces. And whereas Virginia has one of the highest numbers of military school-age children in the nation and is committed to being an active participant in the Interstate Compact on Educational Opportunity for Military Children, which facilitates military children transitioning in the school systems across state lines. And whereas our children of our service members continue to make significant contributions to schools, communities, the nation, and our Commonwealth, despite prolonged and repeated absences of one or both parents. And whereas all of Virginia public schools remain committed to care and education of the children of the men and women of our armed forces. And whereas by partnering with the school liaison officers, military leaders, educators, community organizations, VDO provides the unique support needed for military service members and their families during all stages of transition and deployment. And whereas Month of Military Child reaffirms our commitment to ensuring excellence in schools, childcare, and youth services to military children who face unique challenges that other children their ages never experience. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Stafford County School Board hereby designates the month April 19th as the Month of the Military Child.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker.
Yep.
Dr. Chase, would you read the next proclamation, please?
Yes. So this is a proclamation to designate April 2019 as Autism Awareness Month. Whereas April has been designated as National Autism Awareness Month, and whereas autism is a pervasive developmental disorder affecting the social, learning, and behavioral skills of those affected by it, and whereas autism occurs in all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups and is 4 times more likely to occur in boys than in girls, and whereas as more and more health professionals become proficient in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, resulting in rates as high as 1 in 59 children. And whereas while there is no cure for autism, it is well documented that if individuals with autism receive treatment early in their lives, it is often possible for those individuals to lead significantly improved lives. And whereas Stafford County Public School provides ongoing training to educate parents and professionals about autism and its effects, now therefore be it proclaimed that the Stafford County School Board hereby designates April 2019 as Autism Awareness Month throughout the school division.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Can you read our citizen comments? Comments?
Okay. Individuals wishing to comment at this time may do so by responding to the general invitation by the board. Speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation, if the spokesperson represents an organization. Speakers shall also announce the purpose, topic of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to speakers. The chairwoman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chairwoman. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize the procedure outlined in Stafford County Public Schools Policy 1113, Public Complaints.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. We have 3 persons who've signed up. I'm going to call their names, and if there's anyone who wishes to speak after them, please come forward and sign on the sheet on the podium there after you finish your comments. The 3 persons who signed up are Lily Tipling, Candace Jennings, and Paul Wadowski.
Hi again, my name is Lily Tipling and my address is 1 Sequoia Lane. Once again, I am here to remind you of the horrible effects of single-use plastic on our environment. Throughout Virginia, there are huge mountains of trash that grow daily. Plastic is a large part of that waste. Plastic never completely biodegrades. It will be in those landfills forever. You can help. Take a step towards sustainability by eliminating single-use plastic straws in Stafford County Public Schools. They are simply unnecessary. I would like to invite you to the Stafford County Focus Festival on Thursday, where I can show you more of my research on this growing problem. Thank you and have a good evening.
Good evening. My name is Candace Jennings. I live at 103 Pecan Lane. I live in the Falmouth District. I'm here tonight as a staff member of Stafford County Public Schools, where I have worked for the last 20 years. I'm speaking today about a study that was done, and it's a budget question comment. In June 2018, all of the administrative assistants of Stafford County Public Schools were asked to complete a wage and classification study survey from Evergreen. In July of 2018, we all completed this survey, and they were all, an invitation was sent to us at our respective schools. We completed it, and then the final results of the study were published in March of 2019. Upon review of all the published documents that were submitted to Stafford County Public Schools to Evergreen for all pieces of the study, for the wage and classification study, it was discovered that the pay grades and steps for administrative employees, nothing to do with administrative assistants, this is supervisors, chief officers, and directors, that was submitted to Evergreen with a different and inflated salary scale than the published and approved 2019 fiscal year school board's adopted budget. And I have some packets here, and that's all I have to say. Thank you. Can you get them to you?
Give them to the clerk.
I was enlisted too. Paul Waldowski, 8 Pickett Lane. I live in the gerrymandered Rock Hill District, and I own property in the gerrymandered Griffiths Whitewater District. On March 26, 2019, someone took my picture from behind there, and there's a 2006 Code of Virginia 18.2-386 that says unlawful photography of another. If I find out who did it, I will prosecute. Whereas, being the chairman of the 2030 Cicadas, because I am pro redevelopment and I'm against development, the real reason I'm here is because Stafford chooses school zone plan E2-1. Well, let's talk about elections first. If you've been in office like Joe Biden, 7 times he ran for the Senate and he won. That's not service before self. That's a career. Politics is not about careers. Now, 2 of you are very new to the board, and I'll give you my vast wealth of experience as a leader, as a project manager. Nobody learns their job in 18 months or less. That's a fact. It's called the 80-20 rule. So let's see, that's 3 votes I covered, and we know the 4th vote, there was no comment, and of course you only received less than 40% of the vote, and we all know that representatives should have 50% of the vote plus 1. So when you all go vote this year on November 5th, make sure you get out there and vote, because redistricting is coming in 2021. Now, I like some of the comments here, especially when something is static, like 700 kids were stationary. I think it's not just the kids who are stationary, because like most liberal newspaper reporters, it's 700 families that are disrupted. And in 2021, I'm just praying that 2 of you are gone. I just hope that the gerrymandering committee comes in play, that we only get 5 supervisors, which will automatically make 5 school board members. So we will have a northeast, a northwest, a southeast, a southwest, and we'll have an elected member at large. Now, I didn't want to take the thunder of the award ceremony the other day, but my case in point has always been, as a high school student, who is your school board member? Well, have you seen, you have people who represent a school that's not even close to their district. You know, I'm in this big fight with the Garrisonville supervisor. You know, he told me he's supervisor. Well, he won by 13 votes. He drew the lines in 2011, and he stopped Garrisonville right on 610 before North Stafford, which he calls the commercial corridor. It's just amazing what happens when you put self, the me world, in front of the we world, and the effects you have on those aspects. So I'm done on my soapbox. I'm going to beat up the utility commissioners now. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Kelly Thompson, 114 Wendy Street, Stafford, Virginia, and I work at Stafford Elementary School as well. So I spoke to you guys before about mental health awareness training a few weeks ago. So just a little update, my son is now attended Stafford Elementary School, Stafford Middle School, Brook Point, the public day school of Stafford. He's on homebound instruction for 2 weeks, and we'll start Gladys B. Overly program April 22nd through very persistent following through compliance issues with IEP. Progress goals were not done. That will be looked into further as I have time. What I am here to speak again is about the mental health awareness training that we need to offer through our county. So Dr. David Jack from Fairfax County, or Fauquier County, does the youth mental health first aid training for his county. It's a great training. It's 10K, all grants, all funded through LEA approved, and a whole grant fund. He's willing to work with our school board or with Dr. Kisner. I mean, I've emailed him several times about questions about the program, and he's willing to work with Stafford County to see what we can do to get ahead on that particular program. I watched the free webinar that he offered through the Virginia board of that one. It was an hour during my planning time. Well, it was during a day that I had to leave early due to a FAT meeting that was not held. So I watched it during that, but thankfully they sent me the link to it, and I will share that with you guys. I do have to give my email address, but it's something worth watching. And it was free. So that was pretty interesting. I guess my second would be that Dr. Russell Barkley, that's at VTCC, I've discovered him. This is a book study that I'm offering through our school. I have 22 teachers that will go through my learning plan just at my school. I've emailed him. I've asked him to come and do a seminar here because I have a lot of parents that could use this information. I've already shared with them. I'm an inclusion teacher and have many IEPs and 504 plans. So I'll be offering that just for our school, but I think it's worth other teachers looking into and reading. It's a very easy read, very to the point. I think that it would be worth looking into. He is a little expensive, $2,000 for 1 hour, but I think it should be a county-wide, not just SES. I think it should be something we offer to parents and staff members and the whole community for something like this, because it's very helpful to understand ADHD and how it breaks down the brain and academics and executive functioning. I also just signed up for the May 9th training for mental health first aid through RACSB. Then to find out that Stafford County is on there for August 7th and July 18th doing trainings, one here that no teachers have been invited to.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rebecca Musso, and I live at 55 Ironmaster Drive in the Hartwood District. And I'm here not only as a teacher, a sixth grade science teacher at Gale Middle School, but I also taught at Stafford Middle School for a time period, but also as a parent of a rising kindergartner who's going to Whining Creek and a rising sixth grader who's going to attend Thompson Middle School. I had intended on coming to the board meeting this evening, but almost didn't make it because my daughter, my 4-year-old, put a little googly eye up her nose. And en route to the ER, she sneezed it out, so alas, here I am. I had not intended on speaking, however, And there are many topics about which I could speak. And there are many points of contention among the teachers related to the budget and other things that are happening regarding redistricting and other things like that. I'm not here to speak to any of those particular things. I'm here just to advocate for our kids. And I know that teachers, we're used to being leaders. We're used to being in control of our classrooms, just as you all are used to being leaders as well. And I know that there are many, many passionate people in this room who are very passionate about our children and our children's education. And I'm very glad to see that so many people are coming out to support our kids and be passionate about all of the things that we care about in teaching and guiding Stafford County Public Schools. That being said, I know that there are a lot of differences in opinion because we are all very passionate, but we're all here for the same reason, ultimately, because we all care about our children. We all want what is best for our children. So if I could use the last minute of my time just for us to look at each other and look at all of us in the room and consider that we all want the best for our kids and try to keep that in mind as we move forward to make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you sign in, please? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christina Lewis. I live in 15 Hampton Oaks. I am here to represent the administrative assistants of Stafford County Public Schools. 7 of the past 9 years, administrative assistants have received no step increase or market adjustment, causing us to fall well below the minimum of the market. And you've seen us stand up here before, and we talked to you last year about it. Met with the, at that time, superintendent, recently with Mr. Fulmer. And this year we appreciate the market study. But to go back to last year, when we brought you our concerns that we weren't included, you said, there's nothing we can do. There's no room in the budget. We're recognizing bus drivers, paraprofessionals. We can't honor steps. You're going to have to stay frozen. We can't do market adjustments. You'll have to wait till market study. So this brings me to what I'm really concerned about. I attended the FAB meeting, and then I went concerned at what I received, and I just didn't understand, so I went back and I had to go through the market study, and something was alarming in it, and I hope to goodness that I'm wrong. And I just also want to take a moment to pause here. I have only recently met Dr. Kisner. We've had an opportunity to meet with him. He's fantastic. He is a sense of logic, and what we found in this document that we're a little bit concerned about, it was prior to his existence. I don't know who actually knew about it, and like I said, I hope it's wrong. But here's what we're concerned about. Why do the administrative salary scales submitted to Evergreen not match the fiscal year 19 adopted salary scales? Those scales in the adopted budget clearly reflect the approved 2.5% across the board salary increase. The scales I'm looking at are substantially higher for not all the administrators on that scale. I don't see the high school principals, middle school, any of those. Those numbers match. But for some of these positions, if I'm right, and these numbers are true, then they reflect raises last year of over $10,000. How could that be? So I'm asking, and like I said, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope you will not put me in my place, but tell me I'm wrong. Show me that I'm wrong, that this didn't happen, because you said we couldn't get anything until a market study. Even if that market study said we were below minimum, we still weren't going to get anything. Did this happen? So I hope that I am wrong, that you will provide clarification to all of us, because I am only one of many people concerned about this. Thank you.
Could you sign in, please? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Wieners. I live at 6 Torrey Court. I'm in the Hartwood district. I hadn't planned on speaking. I've spoken to you before. I've spoken for the last 2 years, and frankly, I'm tired of it. It's sad that we have to grovel. But in light of this more recent information, I just want to urge you to pay great attention to the issue of the administrators and executives of Stafford County Public Schools having received their pay increases these last several years, unbeknownst to the rank and file. Transparency is a word we hear a lot. Where is their transparency? We've heard it in the FAB meeting. They actually used that word. It's insulting. The administrative assistants have groveled before this board and the Board of Supervisors for the last couple of years, and imagine our disgust to learn that while we have been asked to wait year after year, we learn that they have afforded themselves annual raises, tens of thousands of dollars that could have gone to us, and the only thing they can offer us is halfway to the minimum. It's insulting, and they should be embarrassed that it has come to light this way. I hope, as Ms. Lewis said, it's wrong, but it's angering, as you can hear. I am just so put out and fired up over this, and I hope that I share this anger and angst with each and every one of you. I hope that you can dig to the bottom. I hope we're wrong, but it doesn't look that way, and transparency is not something they are offering. And again, it's not Dr. Kisner. This is embedded in these last few years. I think he is a bright light. I think there's a lot of change that has to be made, and I hope to gosh it starts now. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Come back to the board. Do we have any school board committee reports?
I've got the FAB.
Oh, Dr. Chase.
So the Finance and Budget Committee met on April 2nd. We received a briefing on the Evergreen Compensation Study and an initial proposal on how the $500,000 in the school board approved FY20 budget request might be used to begin bringing these last employee groups onto the market. If the board wants more information, the minutes and handouts from the meeting were sent to you via email by our clerk. And I just want to thank speakers for bringing some of this to our attention, and hopefully Dr. Kisner and Mr. Fulmer will get back to us with if there's an issue. And our next meeting is scheduled for April 22nd. And to my fellow board members, please let me know if there's anything you want on the agenda in the next couple of days, because staff are likely to be off next week. With the short summer, I hope staff is taking a much-deserved break.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Any other board committee reports? Mr. Cater?
Yes, the Special Education Advisory Committee met last night, actually. Among many things, we discussed information on collaborative classes, proper ratios, and actually we're going to be getting a briefing on that from the Special Education Advisory Committee, a presentation from them on July 16th. So I won't spoil too much of their presentation, but we did discuss proper ratios for classrooms with regard to percentages in classrooms of gen ed and students with IEPs and 504s, what that looks like for children, success rates, and things of that nature. We also discussed additional resources for our schools to include school social workers and mental health, psychologists. Yeah, and we're going to be getting a really intense breakdown of all of that in their presentation, so stay tuned.
Thank you. Any other board committee reports? No? Ms. Hazard, would you like to start with board member comments?
Well, first, I hope everybody has a wonderful upcoming spring break, time to refresh, renew. We will be coming back, and it will be a insanely crazy time, the budget and many other issues, so I do hope everybody gets a well-deserved break, as has been mentioned. Just a couple things I'd like to mention tonight. It was a wonderful evening last Friday. I know Dr. Kisner joined us at Heartwood for their STEAM night. We had over 450 people and families there. It was packed. It was a really great evening. We also had a wonderful meeting last night of our Fine Arts Advisory Committee. We had a little mini celebration, but about Stafford being named the 2019 Best Communities for Music Education, which is so exciting, having a musician. But that is really something to celebrate, and I'm going to disclose what I mentioned last night. I really hope that that gets to be on some of our letterheads if we can use that logo, because I think that's just something we need to be really proud of. And I also wanted to acknowledge our new member of our committee, Michael, who is a student, and I just would like to mention how important and great it is to get the student input into our advisory committees. And I know, Dr. Kuzner, it's something you've talked about, but how we really get our students involved in some of these policy making, some of them by area, but maybe there's other avenues. He made like 2 or 3 comments, and it was like, wow, okay, that would have, us adults would have taken a long time to get there. I can acknowledge a prior student, Ms. Caroline Bingham, who served us very well for 3 years on our committee, and she was really great. Something I'd like to share or ask the board to think about. I know we received, and Dr. Chase, this is on me, so I'm saying, didn't get back to that email because we were sort of flooded with other topics of emails that were coming through for a couple weeks. About working again with the Board of Supervisors in a joint schools process. I did speak at their budget hearing about getting our CIP process back on track and how we need to work together as a board. I hope that we don't lose this joint schools dialogue. I think it can be narrowed to maybe 3 or 4 topics a year. The ones that I would throw out for us to think about partnering or actively partnering. I hope that we are always a partner with our Board of Supervisors in some way, but actively partnering. I would say with regard to our CIP, with getting high school number 6 moving location, I know that we have put aside money 2 or 3 budgets ago to study a certain area regarding the high school. I hope we reactivate that. Secondly, I would like us to partner actively in the security of our schools. That may involve not just the security we usually think of, but what are the other ways we can work collaboratively, in the security area, because that is really something we need to partner with our Board of Supervisors with. And then Ms. Young and I last fall attended a seminar where we learned about that the availability and access to the internet in Stafford is actually one of the lowest in the county. We were given, and I'm sorry, I can't remember if the 1 was the best or worst, whatever. We were a 3, which I believe was second to lowest. And I think that is something we as a school board can't completely tackle on our own. But I think that's an area that we should really work with our Board of Supervisors to show how many of our kids going home at night. Many of you know, of course, I represent the Heartwood district. I know some of you laugh. Yes, there are some dead spots, and I'm sure each board member has those as well. But that is something that does impact our students in this go world, access to internet, access to information. I don't want us to handicap kids as our, from a county perspective, that our kids when they leave can't go home. I know when I go over to the Bill Howell Library, there are kids at night sometimes in the parking lot there because their internet does stay on at night so that they can access it. So I would just offer to the board maybe these 3 areas, because I think these are things we can't completely tackle on our own, and we need to actively partner. So I'm just throwing those out. I apologize, Dr. Chase, I meant to put that in an email, but it got overcome by other emails. So I do apologize. Dr. Chase did ask for some topics, and I admit I found it in my, what I call my emails that say follow-up, and I found it was rather dated. But I would just invite the board to think about maybe those topics, and I'm sure you all have others, but those are the ones we really can't do alone.
Thank you. Mr. Cater.
Thank you. I'm not really sure where to begin, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to try as nicely as I can. Transparent. I looked it up. It's an adjective. It means allowing light to pass through so that objects behind can be distinctly seen. It means easy to perceive or detect. It means having thoughts, feelings, or motives that are easily perceived. And of an organization or its activities, it means open to public scrutiny. I would just like to say that transparency is not a strategy. And I'm pretty disappointed that in every piece of information that comes to our board, it is put on our agenda for information, and then 2 weeks later it is moved to action, and that is the way that our board functions. I am disappointed that we have a school, Moncure, and I fully accept that option E21 has been adopted by the board. However, as a means of being transparent, I did let the board know that I fully intended on moving to asking them to reconsider for option E22. I still truly believe, and I'm not trying to beat this drum forever, but I just still have concerns about Moncure. I'm very disappointed that as I was looking at some information after our March 26th decision, I was looking at the low incidence program placement as well as the program summary for those schools and how they are intended for use, and I noticed that there was some discrepancies, and I noticed that Moncure is going to be at a higher capacity than we initially thought it was going to be at when we approved E21. I sent emails to several people trying to get more information on that. I've still not been provided with that information. I do look forward to hearing what I assume is going to be briefed during superintendent comments this evening. My only assumption is that it's going to be briefed during superintendent comments because I was transparent in letting you know that I fully anticipated bringing forward option E22 tonight, so that if it's not on the agenda for information or action, I don't have an opportunity to do that. So that's clear. I have grave concerns over Moncure being a Tier 2 class size reduction school. I have grave concerns that I understand the board isn't required to approve placement for low incidence programs. However, we were asked to. And when some of us had concerns about moving those programs, we were urged to. And we were urged to for many reasons, including the fact that in the past, low incidence programs are placed in schools based on where they fit. And this was our opportunity to give them preference, to put them first, to place them where they should be placed based on staff recommendations, and we did that. And so I do look forward to the briefing this evening on where they're going to be now, but I just don't find it appropriate that we're going to be asked to move them because the calculations were off. Moncure sits higher than it was initially, we were initially told that it was going to be. And again, as a class size reduction school, I was told, and I could be wrong, but I was told that it took 3 years after the last redistricting for Hampton Oaks to really get on their feet, for them to gel. And I fully believe that there is instructional time, important instruction time lost for those children in those 3 years. I talked about this last night at our SEAC meeting. Think about a first, then a second, then a third grade student. Oh, but Hampton Oaks got on their feet in her fourth grade year. Great. How are her SOL scores looking? So now we're doing that to Moncure. And my final comment is that when this was proposed, a very similar idea was proposed for Ferry Farm. It was not acceptable for Ferry Farm, but we did it to Moncure.
Ms. Young.
Good evening, everyone. So today we attended, Dr. Kisner, Dr. Chase, and we attended the Brook Point High School, where they had a nonpartisan voter registration drive. Hundreds of young people were registering to vote. It's very refreshing to see this organization inspire us, wonderful group of young people, so it was really nice. And then, of course, Dr. Kisner had a round table with his principals and with Atif Kwame, who is the Secretary of Education, and they discussed issues and concerns that the principals and assistant principals had. Yesterday, I attended 2 meetings. I attended the CTE, which is the Career and Technology Committee. Discussions surrounded the visit that was completed to Henrico Advanced Career Education Centers, and I think, Dr. Chase, you went with them also. And the Stars in STEM Career Pathway Showcase was also completed on April the 4th. They have a couple of upcoming events. The 13th Annual Skills USA Car Show at North Stafford High School. That's May 11th, and the Stat Capstone presentation. That is, I don't have a date on this here. What date was it, Dinah? Oh, okay. It just says 5 to 7, question mark. Okay.
She
And
said the last Thursday.
last Thursday in May? Okay. And then, of course, there is an exciting opportunity, this one here, October the 8th, October the 9th, and 10th, Discover Your Future event, in an effort to serve thousands of students and community members from across the Fredericksburg region. And the other was the Technology Advisory Committee. That was awesome. I saw the flip model tool at Colonial Forge. Is really interesting, and discussion surrounded about perhaps having the same tool at other high schools and other schools, period. I think Mountain View is also using it now, but it will be nice to have a central location where they could all learn about, what is present, what is new, what is fresh, and that all the RTs and schools could use the same. I think that our Director of Technology is looking into that also. And we also enjoyed several student representatives. Ms. Holly talked about that, but we have some dynamic students, Stephen, Emma, Jared, and Adam. They're from different committees, VA Star, and one is a summer intern, but they do so much work, and I would like them to come to the board. As a matter of fact, they're going to be the ones doing the technology presentation, so you're in for a real treat. These individuals are awesome. They support younger kids. They do some work on the side, besides doing work in the school system. I think they worked with some of the kids at Moncure, as a matter of fact. And I think that is all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I was going to call Ms. Egan. Can you grab that phone, Mr. McOsker?
Ms. Egan, are you there still? She is. She's out.
Her flight was at 8:30. They're probably boarding.
Probably on.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, probably boarding.
All right, well, Mr. McOsker?
Sure. Speak into the microphone. I usually say no comment, but I'm not going to do that tonight. So we're over halfway done with the school year, and I'm just really impressed with the professionalism of the front office staff led by our superintendent. And of course, the leadership in the schools. They're doing a great job, and for such a large school division, we're not hearing a lot of problems. And so that's a testament to the superintendent and staff. Budget, it's that time of season, and I'm glad that folks are coming up and speaking their mind, and that's good. It's good stuff. We need it, and I appreciate the information on the administrative employee pay scales. It's no secret I wasn't a fan of some of the last leaders in the division and the Evergreen company that they supported. The report, in my opinion, the initial one, that division-wide one that was 300 pages, was mostly garbage. So I'm not sure how this pay scale thing, and we're going to ask the superintendent to take a look at it and come back to us and figure out what's going on with this other report. Employee pay. Employee pay has been one of my top priorities in this job for years. I'm not a Facebook guy, and so I'm not going to get on Facebook and tell you what a great thing I did. But it was those folks in the SEA and there are other ones that know me that I fight hard for the employees. I always have. If you remember directly, remember the old mistake, the 2% mistake for the teacher pay, and remember how I reacted. And what we did, we didn't gain all 2%, but we gained an extra 1% just because of the mistake, and it was a terrible mistake. And I made sure I fought, and we got it with support of the board. So, but also I've been pushing hard over the years for our paraprofessionals that are working so hard in the classrooms, especially with some of our overcrowded classrooms, and the teachers that are overwhelmed. Without those paraprofessionals in there, it's really, really tough. And so we fought hard over the years to gain, and we have gained money in those pay scales. It was a good raise last year. It wasn't as much as I wanted for the paraprofessionals, bus drivers, monitors, and I think we got a little bit for the nurses, but hopefully we'll do some more this year for the nurses as well. But we need to pay our employees, and we need the baseline studies, however good or however bad they are, to make sure that we're understanding what folks are getting paid. And I do pay scales at work, and if one location is getting paid this amount, and a location 15, 20 miles down the road is getting paid $10,000 more, that's not a good thing, right? You've got to keep up with it. Now, if the location's 100 miles away, getting paid $10,000 more, that's a different story. If you want to do 100-mile travel every day for the extra 10 grand, have at it, right? So we really have a problem. We really have to make sure that we pay our employees to stay here. And I said the same thing to the supervisors during our joint meeting. I said, we're at a turning point now where the economy is doing very, very well. I'm having a hard time hiring my folks for the military to support our installations worldwide because the economy is just doing so well. I'm losing folks to attrition. We have retention problems, and that's not just teachers. But the teacher is that highly trained, and that employee in the school division that's certified or not certified is either a hard worker or they're certified. They are a hot commodity. They are a hot commodity. If we don't get on top of this retention, attrition issue for our teachers in this county, we could see a rotating force of new teachers coming into the county to gain a certification, go back to Pennsylvania, name the state. And we lose all of our experience. Once our senior teachers over 15 years leave, do their time and retire, that's when we'll start seeing our just new teachers staying in and leaving, staying in and leaving. And that is going to be a big problem for the HR folks. So we have to take that seriously, and I hope our supervisors, and I know they're taking it seriously as well, and hopefully they'll come through with some money for us. So we're working hard on it. Month of the Military Child. Listen, despite all the whereases that I read, our active duty military families especially are doing some hard work. They're going on deployments to not nice places. The kids are missing dad or mom, and I'm just so proud of the employees of this school division who take care of those kids, along with everybody else in the classroom, and make it a special place. I'm proud that our military families choose Stafford County to live, and I'm proud that our retirees choose Stafford County to live and work. It's a great place to be. So I think that's about it for tonight. There's a lot of stuff going on, and join the school board. It's only 20 minutes a week.
Very fun.
I thought that was an hour.
That's just like the Boy Scouts.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker. Dr. Chase?
No clarifying?
So this might be a little bit redundant from some of Ms. Young's comments, but I want to congratulate the Brook Point High School Inspire Club. They received the Governor's Award for the second consecutive year for registering over 65% of the senior class to vote, and they're well on their way for next year, too, I think. And I want to thank Virginia Secretary of Education Atif Kwame, Congressman Whitman, Representative Thomas, and Supervisor Cavalier for attending the voter registration rally and engaging with our students. I thought that was really wonderful of them. I also very much enjoyed touring Stafford Elementary School and attending the roundtable discussion with Secretary Kwame and Stafford County Public School leadership. And I was so impressed with the welcome we received from Principals Hauk and Foreman. They both did a really wonderful job hosting these events. And then from my trip down to Enrico's CTE program, one of the things they do down there that's really quite wonderful is they have a signing day for students who are going directly into employment after high school. And it's really wonderful that they acknowledge and celebrate those students, not just student athletes who get scholarships and sign with universities, but students who are maybe getting a job as a mechanic or getting a job as a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter. So I hope that our head of CTE and Dr. Kisner can maybe put something like that in place here as well. Thank you.
We actually talked about it yesterday, didn't we, Dinah? What?
Okay, my turn, guys. I actually won't take long. I want to thank Mrs. Hazard for all her work on the Head Start dinner. She has been an amazing representative for this board on Head Start. And every year she works very hard to coordinate a dinner for the families of Head Start that both the Board of Supervisors and the school board are invited to attend and to serve. And she stepped up, went beyond the call of duty, and got the most amazing caterer to give us an amazing price on a wonderful meal. So thank you, Ms. Hazard, for everything you've done.
Thank you all for coming and serving. I'm not that good at scooping ice cream.
But see, that's because you're not a soccer mom and you didn't learn at Brewster's on how to do those scoops. Oh, no, that's what I did a long time ago.
I did too.
But fortunately, at Head Start, we didn't have to measure how much each scoop weighed to make sure we didn't give them too much. But anyway, thank you, Ms. Hazard, and thank you, Ms. Massey, for welcoming all of us to, and Ms. Bingham, to Head Start. I would like to ask, if there's no objection from the board, for Dr. Kisner to give us an update at our next meeting on the plan for the transition for the redistricting. I think. Okay. Well, perhaps if we could maybe make it an ongoing, information item, just because I think there's certain concerns and there's great interest on how we're going to manage effectively this transition and meet the needs of all our students as well as our staff and our family members. And if we could have that at the next meeting, I think we could share that with everyone as well. Also wanted to thank the board for our somewhat hurried, but I think effective meeting on the transfer policy. We clarified right up front, this has nothing to do with any non-resident students. Don't know how that got out there, but there seemed to be some sense of that the board was going to make some changes in that. It was not a topic of discussion. And I know it caused a lot of angst and unrest for staff, and for that I apologize, because that was never the intention. So you can't always believe what you see or hear, you know, on social media. But that's clear tonight. Now, with respect to the transfer policy, we'll have that discussion later on, so I'll hold my, you know, my comments for that. But also appreciate the board agreeing to extend that period of time for, you know, an extra 2 weeks, so we can, you know, have a more complete discussion about it. I wish everyone a happy and restful spring break. Doesn't come soon enough, does it? And then after that, just get ready, because it's a whirlwind, and goodness, we're going to be starting, and it seems like in the middle of summer, right after we get out of school. So thank you very much. Dr. Kisner, that brings us to your comments.
Lily, could you stand up? So Lily is, what's your shirt?
Is your microphone on, Dr. Kisner?
Oh.
I know, I missed it. Sorry.
So Lily, as you have met, she's been to our board meetings twice. She's a student at Conway. And Lily and I have become Twitter friends. And Lily has built a following of people that are supporting, I think, a very important cause for us to be environmental conscious. And I think she's demonstrating that one person can make a difference. And I am proud to announce that on May 6th, we will no longer use any plastic straws in Stafford County Public Schools. And what that means in real terms, the one thing I couldn't find, but we use 120 cases of straws a year, and there's a lot of straws in those cases. So we will be having a process in place. There are certain groups of children or certain children that need a straw. They will have access to a straw, and we are now working to get paper straws for that cause. So, Lily, thank you. And,
Dr. Kisner, I think that calls for a picture that can be tweeted out. If Lily doesn't mind coming down and getting a picture with the superintendent.
Well, the superintendent's been trying to get
He
rid of straws
always
for...
wants to get his picture taken.
That's right.
The superintendent's been trying to get rid of straws for 3 years. You did it in a week, so go, you sit in his chair.
yeah, Lily, why don't you come up here? You're a lot younger and more energetic. Yeah, he says, don't hurt yourself. We don't want you.
Yes, please come up. Mom's always important. Come on up.
Got it?
I got many.
Thank you, Lily.
And I love the T-shirt.
Yes.
Your father of 3 daughters, I really love that.
It's on your list, right?
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Kisner.
Okay, I just have a few more things. Okay, so I sort of really, I want to thank another student that's not here tonight. Her name is Olivia. She's an 8th grade student at Poole Middle School. She directed and produced a play that was focusing on being sensory sensitive to children with disabilities. And I had a chance to see that play today, and I can tell you, it was spectacular. And it was really nice to see children that sometimes react to significant noise or light, and the students were great, and Livia and her mother were very proud of their accomplishment, which they should be. So that I really do want to thank. I know we're recognizing a lot of people. I just don't want to lose sight that this is Assistant Principals Week. This is another group of people that do remarkable work and receive, very limited attention. I want to make sure I point that out. I do want to mention, I think you're aware of it, but it's timely, that we did receive a grant, a school mental health grant for the 2019-20 school year by the American Psychiatric Association. Its first round will target 6 of our schools. I will share, I know the board already knows that the school improvement model that I've already presented to the district leadership team, and I will present tomorrow to the Staff Advisory Committee, and talked briefly to the board already, has a component on social emotional well-being of our children. So that will be a primary embedded focus that you'll see in all 32 sites, or 33 next year when we open up North Star. I had a great discussion, terrific students. Saturday morning, I went to the youth group of the NAACP, and we had a really important conversation about equity and access. And you learn a lot when you talk to young people, and I do appreciate the invitation. We had our school safety task force meeting since our last board meeting, and I will forward you the school safety task force report that was completed in September, and then in May, we'll put it on the agenda either in, we'll put it on the agenda, and I'll learn what is the best process. I'll defer to law enforcement if it should be in closed session or open session, okay? I do want to mention what Mr. Cater mentioned. I am asking the board, on February 2nd, we did make a recommendation. The board asked us to make a recommendation on a low incidence classroom placements. I would like to maybe another day have another conversation to just allow this responsibility forward administration. We have children that move in, move out of the system, and we have to place where we believe is the best location. Sometimes it will do to proximity, sometimes it will do to space. But saying that, and regardless, I don't want to get caught up into the two plans. I've been charged, whatever decision you make, to make sure it becomes a very effective outcome for our children. But saying that, it didn't matter which plan was adopted, okay? We believe, I think staff concur, I know Moncur staff concurs, that the two low-incident classrooms, one that's currently at Brent and one that's currently at Garrisonville Elementary School, should stay at Brent and Garrison Elementary School. We took it a step further because we knew that there's been public conversations about it. We want to make sure that the parents of the children at those schools that might have thought they were going to Moncur be notified. So we spoke to every single one of them, and every single parent that we spoke to was in agreement to keep their children at Brent and Garrisonville. What that does is allow 2 additional classrooms to be available for the administration at Moncur to manage program needs and enrollment growth. So I'm not sure I'm asking you to take any action. I'm really informing you. I really would just say respectfully again, I would probably not bring you this for action, but I did ask you to we did bring it to action for on February 2nd, so you probably would need to take some action today or tomorrow. Not tomorrow, we're not meeting tomorrow, but take action maybe at the next board meeting to make this happen, but I really think this should happen. And that's really my only comment. I'm glad to answer questions about it.
So would you like a motion to approve? We could do it right now.
I mean, that would be my preference, but I understand what Mr. Cater said. Usually we put on information. Again, I don't want to get caught up into that. Superintendent's reports, like school board reports, don't usually have a document attached to it. In hindsight, I should have put it on the agenda, which I didn't. But we have to move forward, and which leads me. So the answer is yes, I wouldn't mind you doing it, because this is really what needs to be done, and this allows Moncur and our leaders in the special education arena to start planning accordingly.
Would the board want to entertain a thought to give this authority to the superintendent to place these programs throughout the school division where his determination is it best meets the needs of the students and the schools?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I would want to even limit it to these 2 classes, because there may be times that there are needs for changes throughout the division, and it is not traditionally something that I think the board makes a decision on. Now, in this case, because we did present it to the public, I think it's important, that be made a public decision. However, I do appreciate you contacting the parents of all the students that are involved. And did you say that there was no one who, wanted to move or objected to
No,
moving?
everyone that's impacted, some of those children are rising, they're going to middle school and stuff, so, but anybody impacted was actually very supportive, to be quite honest with you.
I would just add that these children need to know where they're going. The parents have been contacted. Ms. Johnson, I'm interested to know why it was brought to the board if it's not necessary to bring it to the board, just for information purposes. And I'd also like to clarify that all of the parents were called prior to option 3 being approved as well, and they were all also okay with moving. So they were okay with moving and they were okay with staying, just for the record.
So just for the comments.
Yeah, I am interested to know, Ms. Johnson.
I think that's a question for the superintendent. I mean, the superintendent is the only employee of the board other than Ms. Hall, our clerk. So if there's any questions or requests for
I'm
information,
sorry,
that should be
we
made
do
to the
usually
superintendent.
ask staff questions, and then they come up and speak to the questions. But if that's no longer allowed, then
Well,
I'm fine with that.
Oh, I usually direct it to the superintendent,
I
and
would-
if he wants to ask staff, he can ask them to come forward.
I would like to answer because I was working very closely with Ms. Johnson. If we go back to why we brought it to you, the board at that time was looking at different plans and plans that were adopted. The low-incident programs were talked about at the town halls and the different community forums. So there was a desire, and I'm not disagreeing, to get some clarity and closure on that part of the discussion. Okay, so at that time, if everything was perfect, the locations we presented to you that you approved were the more centralized locations. But just to say, well, let's stay with, and honestly, we could say, just stay with it, but that's not the right thing to do. So we're realizing that February 2nd decision needs to be amended. And talking to the principal of Mount Cure and looking at the total picture of our school division, Garrisonville and Brent have the room, and we think this would be a better option for the schools and for the children of all the schools.
So, Madam Chair, can I make my comment, and then we can move on? So, my comment was going to be to, if it's already been presented, to bring it back in May, and they can move it to action then everything can be laid out, so everyone understands what we're talking about. And, the last, we didn't allow Mr. Cater to add stuff to the agenda. And remember, let's remember and zoom the camera in. The last time we had a last-minute agenda add was the Pass the Gavel Act. Remember that one? Right? So that's the point here is, we have an agenda item, and it's either on and it's staffed and it's done the right way. It's not this last minute, so that's...
With all due respect, Mr. McOsker, I asked the chair and the vice chair and the superintendent in an email to put it on the agenda prior to this meeting, and I was not responded to.
Okay, well, that's not my problem. That is not my problem. I'm glad you let me know.
Well, then we don't need to bring up previous last-minute items unless we're campaigning.
I can bring up whatever I like to bring up, Mr. Cater, and so those are the ends of my comments. Pass the gavel.
Okay, I would just like to respond. Mr. Cater, you also asked to bring the transgender policy back on the agenda, and I sent...
responded, and we had a conversation
and
about
I
that.
sent
Thank
you the
I appreciated
policy, which very clearly says that to put something on the agenda, we need 2 board members or 1 board member and the superintendent. And then you responded, so...
Yes, I appreciated your response to that item that I emailed you about, and we had a dialogue, and I appreciate that. I didn't receive a response to this email again, and honestly, it's okay, guys, we can move on. I realize everyone has moved past this, everyone did their pretty little, I did this week, board member comments. Moncure is still hurting. I'm still asking for answers that I have not received. I still haven't received them. And so please excuse me if I'm a little frustrated and disappointed. I'm concerned about Moncure moving forward. That's all. We can move on. I'm okay.
Well, I just want to make clear that you understand the policy about putting things on the agenda. It applies equally to everyone. All right, so if there's any request from anyone to put something on the agenda, please make sure you either have another school board member or the superintendent to bring that forward. That's what the policy says, until we change the policy, that's going to be the rule. Dr. Chase.
So I just wanted to go back to the question of special programs and whether the school board is supposed to vote or whether that's the superintendent's authority. And I just wanted to say I'm in favor of it being the superintendent's authority. I feel like sometimes for some of these children, there may need to be a very quick decision made, and it really isn't something that we need to have 6 weeks, 2 weeks of information and a third week of action in order to make these things happen. I also think that there may be important privacy issues involved in some of these things. So for me, moving forward, I think it was an unusual situation back in February, but I personally will be supporting letting the superintendent be responsible for that.
May I comment? Not about forward or backwards right now. Something needs to be done on this one because they need time to get people situated. So should we have a vote? Like, do we need a motion? Do we need a vote? Let's get it done so they can move forward.
Let's hear from Ms. Hazard.
Okay.
Partly because we have spring break next week. We do have everybody out of the area. I am willing to say let's wait. I might not say that if we were not going to be on break and staff on, I hope, on break. If there are any questions from these parents, I'm not saying I don't agree that you've talked to everybody. It gives them an additional, of course, it kind of goes against my argument that people are going to be gone, but it just gives a little bit more time. I think that it just makes sense. It was something that we voted on as a board. Whether going forward that is something we should do or not, I don't know. I will tell you my concern is if the board gets completely out of the business of dealing with the capacity in a building. We have spent a lot of time talking about whether program capacity, and that's not here to rehash that, but if we begin to get further away from understanding what is going on in each of our schools, I think should be a more collaborative effort with the superintendent, because we do need to know. It sounds like we're going to get right back to the schools that don't have very many programs. That's who's going to get them. And I really thought I understood us to when we built Moncure, and I hope when we build Elementary 18 and going forward that we have come up with some specifications to meet the changing needs of our kids. And I understand they have to be flex spaces, but they were really designed thinking of special ed and other resource areas. I would hate to throw that down the drain if we end up back putting our kids where we have space. If we build spaces to accommodate them in special needs and in special, I don't know the things, but I know a lot of time was spent on that, on this school, and I hope in future schools that we can use the planning that we need to do to create the best space for all of our kids. And that may not always be, but we may create those, and I think it's a broader discussion, in my opinion.
Yeah, so let me just touch upon that.
Does that help or hurt? I don't know.
When you designed Moncure, and I was not there, you did not know these two rooms were going, these are two regular classrooms. The 8 resource rooms are still there, okay? You're going to have 2 current low incidence rooms. So I don't know exactly what it's meant, and we're all going to tour it, the school, but I just want to at least make that clear, is that when Moncure was designed, up till February 2nd, these 2 programs were staying at Garrisonville and Brent. I guess that's really the only thing I'll just mention. But it could wait if that's what the board prefers to do. And I'm just asking you that this is not, at this point, anything to do with the redistricting. It's everything to do with moving forward, okay? And that school could benefit by having 2 additional classrooms.
All right, well, I'm hearing more than one board member that wants to put it on the agenda, so that meets our policy. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. In fact, we're having our agenda meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay, good. Let me just mention a couple quick,
Because of spring break.
not related to this, I'm done with, I mean, if you want to ask me more questions. Just to briefly talk about what Ms. Healy said. We are going to send a letter, as Carrie, Ms. Neely is sending a letter this week to all the elementary parents, giving an overview of the redistricting, and let them know, Matt and his department, I think will be ready tomorrow, Matt, tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, that parents could go and put their address in and find out what school they're going to, because there's still some parents, Thursday, 2 days, okay, so Thursdays is still very good. We were actually going to put in the letter maybe Fridays, but so it'll be there Thursday. We have scheduled for April 29th and 29th and 30th. Barry is working with all the principals. School field trips for for the children that will be going to a new school, so they could be welcomed, take a tour, meet the facility, meet the staff, see the facility. And then on April 30th, the schools are organizing a welcome night for new families. And there's some other things that we're doing, but I'll wait for the next board meeting, because we'll just put this on there all the time. But Carrie's been working with the 17 building principals and other staff, and I'm very confident in the direction they're moving.
Dr. Kisner, do you think you could include in that letter that the school board is presently reviewing the elementary school transfer policy, and that we expect to have decisions made on that by the middle of May? I think that may be a logical question that arises for a parent. If they're being redistricted, how do they apply for a transfer?
Yeah, this is like a welcoming.
Well,
this was
I
like
know, or maybe
Okay.
put it on that system where they see
Yeah,
where they're
we'll
going.
get that information out.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Just trying to
You
help.
can add the code of conduct on that, in that initial welcoming. I mean, just give them the whole brief.
That's all right. It's just may save some questions and angst. All right, so we have another item for Ms. Hall. Will you make a note on that for the agenda we're going to be working on tomorrow? All right, if that, is that the end of your comments, Dr. Kisner? You have more news for us?
Motion to approve consent items 8.01 and 02.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hazard and Dr. Chase. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. That brings us to action items. We have 2. 9.01, approval to award various furniture, equipment, supply, and installation delivery orders using VPSA funds in the aggregate amount of $763,694.72 for the purchase of classroom, cafeteria, and office furniture and classroom technology in support of the Rebuild Moncure Elementary School project. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Young. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hazard. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Kisner, are we ready to move forward on this item? Do we have
Did
all
we
the
ever get the
information we
easement?
need?
Did you get the plan,
No.
the county plan?
Did we get a deed to go with the plat?
No, ma'am. The county is working that with the county attorney right now, and so they were unable to get it for this meeting. They did correct the one that was present.
Oh, thank you.
And if you have any other questions, there's a representative from the Transportation Department here from the county to answer any questions.
All right, so is there any urgency in moving this forward this evening, because we can only approve half of it without the deed?
Yes, ma'am. I think we can delay, but I'll let Mr. Ozawak.
And thank you for being with us this
Good
evening.
evening, Madam Chairman and members of the board. If we delay action on this, it won't impact the project schedule at this time.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any problem at all with moving forward on the easement that we do have for the Dominion Energy. And the only correction to that was in the signature block. Rather than signing for the county, we're going to sign for the county school board. So if the board wants to move forward with half? Would that help you at all?
Honestly, ma'am, at this time, the utility easement is the most time-sensitive item, so that would
Okay.
be great if you could move forward
So
with that.
would someone like to make a motion to approve the Dominion Energy right-of-way agreement?
Sure. I make a motion that we approve, I believe, attachment 2, utility easement deed corrected. Let me make sure I've got it right. That we authorize that to be executed by the school board. Sorry, that was a little.
That's fine. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hazard, second by Dr. Chase, and this is strictly for the Dominion Energy easement. The easements to be dedicated to Stafford County will be coming back to us when we have a deed to accompany the plat, so we can properly grant the dedication and easements. All right, any discussion on this motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the Dominion Energy easement's approved, and hopefully we'll have that deed for the next meeting, and we'll put that on for action. Thank you. And thank you for waiting so patiently this evening. All right, that brings us to information items. We have quite a few. If anyone has any questions on these, they can certainly come bring them back to Dr. Kisner. I'd suggest if you can try to get them there this week, that would be helpful, so he can at least get them started, on work because of the break next week. 10.01, approval of the 2019-20 Stafford Head Start and Early Head Start refunding and COLA application for $2,604,803, including the philosophy, policy council bylaws, policies, annual self-assessment, annual plan and goals, and receive for information school board Head Start training. And this Mrs. Massey is here to give us this information and give us training. Thank you, Mrs. Massey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Kisner. As you know, every year we have to come forward and before you and present our refunding application and then get approval of all those items just mentioned and then provide training for you all. So very quickly, we have 3 goals: to improve the quality of facilities for the safety of children, increase our student success in kindergarten with 100% growth in the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework, providing highly qualified instructional staff, working with our English language learners and students with disabilities, and then expanding services to Stafford County children 0 to 5 as funds become available. And then to make sure that we are in compliance with the Head Start regulations. And for your information, we will have an off-site desk review the week after spring break, starting that Monday, April 22nd, it'll be a federal review of our program Phase 1. They'll be on-site next year for Phase 2. Last year, we served 326 children with Head Start and Early Head Start funding. This doesn't include the Virginia Preschool Initiative. And there are some statistics there for you of those students that we served last year in those 2 programs. Children who received treatment for health issues, you can see asthma and vision issues were the highest. Most of those children that had vision issues received eyeglasses before they went off to kindergarten, so they were ready to see and read when they left us. We're still working with our overweight and obese children, helping the families receive nutritional and exercise information. We are focused highly on our social and emotional skill development, and as you can see, our students made gains in initiatives, self-regulation, and attachment, all of which are resiliency factors that deal with helping the children, help the children deal with at-risk factors that come into their lives at any time. So the more that we can build those 3 skills with them, the more they can handle what gets thrown at them now and later in life. And then we also measure all of these areas in our family and community engagement framework with Head Start. And you can see that our families made gains in all of those areas, including parenting, employment, housing, a lot of areas that we worked with those families. We had 83% of our parents attend a parent education meeting or workshop. We had 222 families that received some kind of emergency or crisis intervention, and 252 families that received at least one service from our program. One of the things we look at hard is school readiness and work toward that. And the PALS pre-K that you see that chart there, if the students are within those two yellow bands, they are considered passing or on level of where they should be to go into kindergarten. The blue line was where they were in November, which was already a month and a half of instruction in our program, and then the pink line is where they left us in the spring. At the very bottom, you can see the fall kindergarten PALS scores when they went on to kindergarten in the fall in November, that 88% of our students passed the PALS kindergarten as composed to 83% of the whole K population. So again, 15% of those students had IEPs and 31% were English language learners. For your training, Appendix A here lists the responsibilities of the school board and the responsibilities of Policy Council according to the program performance standards in the Head Start Act. They're there for your information. And then the program governance impasse procedures if there ever is an issue between the school board and Policy Council. You're also supposed to receive training in how we select and enroll students in Head Start. Of course, we have income guidelines, but after a child is eligible for Head Start, then we have these ranking selection criteria that are selected by Policy Council based on our community assessment and then approved by you all as part of that plan, that ERSI plan that we call it. For instance, in our community, we don't have a huge system of public transportation. So when a family doesn't have a personal vehicle, that impacts their ability to get a better job or to serve their family. So they get points for not having a personal vehicle, and that raises their application status. So those are points there that they receive for checking off items. This is the income guideline. These are the income guidelines. On the left are what make them eligible for Head Start, at the bottom, and on the right, eligible for VPI, and then the documentation that we need to determine that eligibility. This is the official Head Start website, so if you have ever any questions about Head Start regulations or the Head Start program or related to early childhood, there's so many resources on this website. And just a big thank you for all you do.
A question, is this the training, or are we going to get a training, or is this an overview?
This is the training. So
Are you
again,
sharing this document with us at all? Or?
yes, ma'am, it is on the agenda.
All right.
You can access it any time.
Okay.
If there are any questions
All right.
that come out of this that you would like further training on, I am always more than helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And what we could do is refer them through Dr. Kisner, and then he can share it with all the board. Thank you. And Ms. Hall, speaking for myself,
asking, I
and
thought this was
perhaps
an
Ms.
overview, but-
Hazard, if she wants to join in, I would like to get a hard copy of the training part of this presentation, because I'd like to keep it for reference. I don't, Ms. Hazard, you and I are usually the paper people.
I'm good, though, because
Oh, that's
I've
right,
gone
you're on the
over
policy
each component
council.
part of this, so
That's right.
I have seen this
You
before.
see it every month. So is
I'll
there
take,
anyone else?
I'll take Holly's copy.
Yes.
Is anyone else, you want a copy?
Yeah,
Don't,
And,
don't give me a copy.
Let's make one for Ms. Egan, just in case. Mr. Cater, do you want a copy? No? Okay, thank you. All right, well, we can get those at the next meeting. We
And then
can
in-
browse through it for reference.
It's Assistant Principal Week, so I'd like to recognize our Assistant Principal, Karen Bingham. She created this video for you.
Oh,
Where's the sound? I have a parquet in
It's
here.
on mute down at the bottom right. Click that little, and then restart it so we can hear it.
Oh, we're not talking about just pushing the Come on, Carter. Let's see how many you have. Come on, Carter. Get them all up and see how many you have.
What number is it?
9.
Yeah.
I'm in about 6. I don't like you. Say bye. We are 5 years old. 5 years old don't use little pepper. Little years old. Now clip it. Good job. This has a normal word. Awesome. Oh, it's 3. Okay. I like learning letters. I want to be a superhero grow up. And I want to be an astronaut when you grow up. What's your thinking again? Nobody plays Hello, my stop. Have no paper.
We'll offer a contract.
Okay. Don't forget about Mary Washington. Go ahead and start.
Keep track of her. Were there any questions about the refunding application or anything I can help you with all?
No, that'll be on the agenda for action at the next meeting.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Massey. All right. that
Chairman
bring-
Healy, if I could just make one quick comment, I just would like to say, we have an amazing Head Start Policy Council this year. We have so many involved parents. It's a testament also to our staff of including them. And it's just, it's really a great group to work with. And I just wanted to point out for the board, something that the Policy Council, when we're going over what are some of our needs, what are some of the things we really want to get done, just want to point out, one of the big ones that we came up with was the ADA accessibility of Melchers, and North Star as well, but I'm kind of thinking Melchers is more on the needy end of really needing maybe some ramps and some of those things. And I just would like to encourage the board, I know as we get into the 3 Rs and all those things, but the ADA accessibility of Melchers as a building is something I really think we need to examine as a board. And it was something I just wanted you to know that Policy Council came up, it wasn't me pushing them, that they really did have talked a lot about the ramps and getting into certain areas of that building, if we needed to get kids out or in, not just our kids, but our staff. So I just feel like I have to advocate for that we really need to keep an eye on that as we move forward on our repairs and lists.
Thank you, Ms. Hazard, for bringing that to our attention. I'm sure Dr. Kisner will be looking into that tomorrow. That brings us to 10.02, approval of the Career and Technical Education Local Plan and Budget for school year 2019-2020. Are there any questions about this item?
Just one.
Yes, Ms. Hazard.
Can CTE funds be used to fund some of the cost of the proposed firefighting program? I can't remember I know we talked about it in the past. Is it possible? I know that's not saying that this covers it, but is it possible?
Yes, we did discussed that before. We can do certain equipment pieces. There's a state-approved equipment list given to us by VDOE, and we did go through with the fire and rescue team what's on there that we could possibly do. So there's a possibly $30,000 to $40,000 worth.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, that brings us to, Ms. Decatur, did you have a question?
No, I just have an itchy eye.
Oh, okay, all right. Didn't know if the hand was going up. 10.04, approval of the adoption and purchase of textbooks for mathematics. Oh, oh my God, oh, that's right. I'm sorry, moving too quickly. 10.03, approval of the 2019-2020 annual plan for special education. Any questions on this item? These will all be coming back for action at the next meeting.
Just one comment.
Okay.
Can I just make one comment from the report? I'm sorry, did you want to go first? I'm sorry.
No.
I just said, I just wanted to say, because not everybody in our audience probably reads these like that, but just for everybody to know, 12.2% of our student population is eligible under IDEA, which is 3,541 students. But one of the neat percentages that was noted in there is 61.47% of our students with disabilities spend 80% or more of their time in gen ed. And I thought that was actually a really great number and statistic. I think it's a good one for us to point out, because I think that's great. But I did want to note, it did say we've seen continued growth in other health impairment and ECSC, and continued growth in autism and specific learning disabilities. That I do believe this is an area we need to just not lose sight of, and really seeing what these numbers are in there. And I just thought we should maybe get that out in the record to make sure we really are seeing what those numbers are, because I thought that when I saw that was actually very eye-opening. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to 10.04, approval of the adoption and purchase of textbooks for mathematics K-8, theater 6-8, and International Baccalaureate, IB, music, psychology, German, Spanish, French, Latin, and social and cultural anthropology. Any questions about this item?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, where are these going to specifically, or is it across the board?
I saw it.
Wahoo-wah, wahoo-wah, wahoo-wah.
You know it, through and through. I'm sorry, Ms. Young, which ones are going? The IB ones?
Well, I would like to know, where's German going, Spanish, French,
Sure.
Latin?
So those are
cultural
only IB. They'll go to Brook Point and Mountain View, just the IB texts. The mathematics will go in all the elementary schools. The middle school math will go in all of our middle schools. And then the theater arts books are class sets, which will go to the middle schools.
And yeah, I just wanted to say I got a chance as I was walking in to look at the IB psychology textbook, and I thought it looked very nice.
Did you like the display?
Yeah, I did like
Yeah,
the display of
chairs to
textbooks.
just put
Yes.
the display out for you guys just to get a peek at the
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
What did you think of the German one?
Thank you.
But I can see
My
that.
German's not that good. I could try a little bit. It's nothing.
All right, that brings us to 10.05, approval of the purchase of 2,290 Chromebooks for elementary, middle, and high school classrooms using budgeted FY19 VPSA technology grant funds in an amount not to exceed $525,000, and 265 charging and storage cards using budgeted FY19 operating funds in an amount not to exceed $265,000. Is there any question about this item? Dr. Chase?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that this money that's coming from the grant, it's specifically used for purchasing Chromebooks that can be used for testing, and it's wonderful that we can also use them for other purposes as well. But important for the public to know that these Chromebooks are being purchased with a grant specific for supporting online testing that the state requires us to do.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. That brings us to 10.06, approval of the award of a furniture delivery order to Interiors by Guernsey of Chantilly, Virginia, using VPSA funds in the amount of $140,891 for the purchase of classroom furniture for the North Star Early Childhood Education Center and elementary school classrooms. Any questions about this item? No? All right.
Quick question, I wasn't sure if it was needed. I know it comes back for informational, but there's no urgency on this one, right?
No,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
10.07, approval of change order number 1, contract extension to ABM Industries using budgeted FY20 annual operating funds in the amount of $3,998,392.84 for custodial service for the period of July 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2020. Any questions about this item?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check on Gale Middle School, that transition to contract, just make sure that we really have had all the retirements and that's what's going on there.
Well, we have 5 employees at Gale, and so not all of them are retiring, and none of them at Gale are retiring. We have others throughout the division that have retired that made holes, and we have slots. And so we try to consolidate that. We work with the employees to put them on the same schedule that they currently have, like some are night and one is a day porter. So we work with that to try to do that. And so that's our plan, and we consult with them and try to work with their schedules as much as possible and get them close to where we don't want to put them across the county, and add some more issues with them trying to get to work and stuff.
So this Gale Middle School transition to contract, so there will still be people employed there who are employees of the county, but then we are bringing in some contract people to do work too?
So these individuals will stay employed at Gale until the end of the fiscal year, and then 1 July we'll disperse them. Some will be going to Ferry Farm. Some will be, I believe, going to H.H. Pool, and then we will consolidate contract work. Now, we have, and it does work, where we have contracted and in-house employees together, but we try, if we have the ability, we try to not do that. It's just easier, but we certainly try to work with everyone involved to make sure it's a good transition.
I just wanted to know if there was any cost saving that was brought up. Like, I know we did some of those in the budget. This is one that we talked about last year, and I believe that it was mentioned that there was some kind of cost saving, phasing out, the individuals that are permanent and then bringing this in.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There is a cost savings going to contract. Now, after this change order and contract extension, obviously, we're going to be soliciting a new contract. And so
I didn't see it in the budget, because I know we put some cost savings, up front, and I don't recall hearing about this one. So maybe perhaps the next time we could make sure it's in the budget. That says that we
absolutely.
did some cost
Well,
savings.
yes, ma'am.
Well, I think the contract is going up this year, isn't it? Didn't I recall that from the budget? There was some increase in the...
We negotiated a
contract,
0.5 for this
Right.
extension, and typically it can range, as the agenda item articulates, it ranges anywhere from 0 to 3%, whatever. And so in the past, we've had it as high as 3% increase, and we've accounted for that in the budget. This year, we accounted for some increase in the FY20 budget for
What I'm
custodial.
saying, though, even though it went up, if you compare it against what you currently have with just employees outside of this contract, there could still be a cost savings, so I was wondering.
And it would be very, very small relative to the cost of the contract, but yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Very
thank
well, understood.
Okay, any other questions? All right, that brings us to 10.08, approval of changes to the 2019-2020 school year calendar. Any questions for Dr. Kisner?
If you have
Do
questions.
Have anything you want to add? Ms. Hazard?
No, I was just going to ask Dr. Kisner, since there are maybe people watching this one, just sort
Oh,
of
okay, some of the
if you don't
highlights?
mind. Well, I think the board received an email that I think
Just the email that I
information-
forwarded to you, maybe
Yeah,
perhaps you
I
could
So I
speak
think
to it.
maybe just going through that might just be helpful, because I see teachers here.
Okay. So I'll delegate it to Tom. Come on, Tom. And at this,
This is Ask the Audience, Mr. Nichols.
With this change, this is required due to the passing of the Robinson and the Chase bills. Not Dr. Chase. And also the Thomas bill, which basically the first two say that it takes away the pre-Labor Day King's Dominion law and now allows schools to start up to 14 days before Labor Day, as long as they take off the Friday before Monday, Labor Day. With that, it also states that a school who has the waiver based on one of the criteria that are currently in the law due to a lot of snow days or specific programs, they can continue to start early, as they have been. The Thomas law says that Planning District 16 can start early if they would have met the requirements for a waiver based on the law as it is written today at July 1, 2019. Stafford County, we would meet that criteria for the inclement weather days and missing multiple snow days. In the last 10 years, we averaged 9 days a year. In the last 5, it's been about 8.3. So we meet that waiver. So based on meeting that, Stafford County can start early, more than 14 days before Labor Day. But due to the Robinson and Chase bill, we must take off the Friday before Labor Day. So the changes that took place in the calendar, we have the August 30th is a Friday. We now have a day off for students and teachers. And then the Thursday, August 29th, in the original calendar that you approved, that was an early release day for elementary students. Based on the recommendation, and since we just started school, that day will be a full instructional day and be taken away from one of the elementary early release days. With the recommendations, we also had, Dr. Kisner asked the high school principals to form committees within their schools and also the middle schools to look at exams and the process. One of the recommendations that have come out of those meetings was that our exam 3 days at the end of each semester, where we have exam days, they felt very strongly that we can continue to take and give exams within the 80 to 90 minute block period. It would not necessarily need a half day for exam days, because they could recoup by taking those days, 3 of them, putting them back into the calendar, aligning them with the elementary early release days. We now gain some professional time to where teachers can work in their professional learning communities, look at common formative assessments, vertical articulate with curriculum, and do other meetings, whether it's school improvement processes and other things of that nature, or trauma as we're bringing in for that part. Also, one of those days was turned into a teacher work day. And with this calendar that we worked really hard last year was to make sure that we aligned our marking periods with some type of a teacher work day to where they could have opportunities to do grading and things to take care of that. So those are the changes. And with those, also we had, almost forgot, January 27th is the VEA lobby day down in Richmond. And due to the impact and the number of folks that we had participate, we felt it was important to turn that day into a teacher work day. So that's Monday, January 27th. So with those 2 school days coming out of the calendar on August 30th and January 27th, we moved those to the end of the year, which are now the 28th and 29th, which used to be the teacher work days at the end of the year. And those 2 days were moved to June 1 and 2. But this calendar and the changes are still 180 days, which is the same amount that you approved and which is the same amount in this revision. Any questions?
Any questions? No, if any questions come up, please send them to Dr. Kisner, and they can be addressed before this comes back to us for approval at the next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Ms. Healy, if we could, on the agenda item, I assume we will approve it, but right now it says the approved 2019-20 calendar. I think we should put proposed until it is approved, because it's confusing that this might be the already approved calendar. Does that make sense? The attachments?
I understand what you're saying, but what we're doing is we're approving changes to the calendar that's approved. So these are.
These are the
new-
modifications?
Yes.
Okay.
See, because that, I think we've got the calendar that we approved in June of 2018, that is currently the approved 2019, 2020 calendar. The proposed revised calendar has the changes that Mr. Nichols just went through with us. So what's on the agenda is the proposed revised calendar.
Right, but I
for
think it
approval.
should say proposed
Proposed
revised instead of
calendar.
approved.
Sure, I don't see any.
Just so
problem
there's
with
no
that.
confusion of which one is which.
tomorrow, we'll,
It's not to be, it just, I
Ms.
would
Hall,
hate for
can
people
you-
to be confused.
Okay, get that.
I just didn't want people to be confused, that this was already the approved.
We don't want to confuse anybody more than we're already confused. Thank you for that, that suggestion, Ms. Hazard. All right, that brings us to our last information item, revisions to student transfer policies
Excluding.
and/or regulations for elementary schools. All right. Is there any discussion this evening? Any comments anyone wants to
Do
make?
we want to make a
If you
mention
can-
of, I'm saying, do we want to make a mention of what we discussed in the work session or
Sure.
no?
Would you like to
No?
summarize?
No? Dr. Kisner?
We're going to make sure this gets pulled out of the policy 2105 and 2105R needs to get
Yeah.
pulled out. I think there was some mishaps in trying to get it out, but this will not show up on the record.
Yes, that is not.
Okay.
Yes, that is not, we actually deleted that policy when we amended the agenda.
Right, so
Okay.
the board clerk's trying to get rid of it. It's just, we're having some trouble. Oh, she just got it done. Good, okay.
You did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Missy.
All right, so we will be bringing this back for information once again. And in our work session, I believe we had a consensus that we would ask Dr. Kisner to come back to the board with his recommendations for any suggested changes to this policy. We also asked that we specifically address the students who are on current transfers in the elementary schools. That would be the K through fourth grade. I don't think we need to deal with the fifth because they will be moving on to middle school, which was approximately, 350-some students. And also, there was discussion about schools that should be identified as closed, and, how that will be addressed as well. I made a suggestion for the schools in the Rock Hill District that have capacity, that, if there are schools that have a sufficient capacity or perhaps, more than sufficient capacity, that they be, open to transfers. I'd like you to, consider that, as well. But we're looking for some recommendations, and I think you heard the concerns. We do not want to have the redistricting undone, because there are a lot of schools that are going to be very full with capacity right now, and we don't want to put those schools in a position where there is just too many. I mean, that's what initiated this whole redistricting, was the schools that were very close to capacity, and we do not want to put the schools back into the position that they were in at the beginning of this school year. Yes, Dr. Chase.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that Dr. Kisner did bring to us was the recommendation that the policy moving forward, that transfers are approved for 1 year, and then they would need to be reapplied for the next year. And I don't know that that's people who currently have transfers, but definitely moving forward, that was the recommendation of staff. Am I giving that correctly? Okay.
Ms. Hazard?
I'm just, in that vein, again, just making sure it's clear, this is limited to elementary school requests, which
Thank
I
you.
think we've
Yes.
said, but that's the focus, tied somewhat to the redistricting. As I have said, I do think at least for the upcoming 2019-2020, year, we may use a lower capacity for this upcoming year, for this limited purpose, to make sure that we don't overburden a school in case there are anomalies that occur that we just don't see. I have been asked, why are we looking at this? And so I do want to just say, now, I know all of the data people, but using elementary transfer students today, the chart that we had in our packet today, and I'm doing it based on what I remember capacities. I know I'm within 20 to 30 kids. You know, a school like Conway, there is 6% potentially of their population that's on a transfer. Stafford, L, 5%, Winding Creek, 5%. And this is not to penalize, but I think we really have to understand where our transfers are coming from and how that impacts our schools. Most people who know me, capacity is a huge, huge issue, and as we want to use our buildings in the best way possible to deliver our services well, I think we have to have a very good understanding of where our students are coming from and how we are getting them. And so I will be supporting a one-year academic that seems to be unanimous across every one of our other jurisdictions. Like I said, I am willing probably for the next year to really look at things and kind of put next year as a, I don't want to say test case, but I may be willing to agree to some things for next year that I think we may need to look at the policy long-term going forward that may have some additional requirements, because there are some things in the policy that concern me today.
Any other comments? I'd just like to thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Hazard, because I do think that, you know, now that we're exploring other jurisdictions, we are seeing that this is an annual review, and that absolutely makes perfect sense, because you may not know when someone's going into kindergarten what that school population is going to be looking at in 6 years. But in that same vein, I would ask the superintendent to consider the students that are on the current transfers, because for as many years as I can remember, when we approved a transfer for someone going into a school, whether it was K-5, 6 to 8, or 9 to 12, that transfer, you know, was unofficially, but it was an understanding. And a board cannot commit a future board. We can't make commitments. But there was an understanding that so long as the criteria that was met at the time the transfer was approved, that that child would be able to stay in that school. Now, I understand that that may not be the case, you know, forever. But I would ask for the board to consider for this coming year that we look at leaving that in place for those 353 students that are, or 350 whatever number of students that are on those current transfers, because the families have certainly proceeded in good faith. We would certainly want to consider and make sure that they meet the criteria they met when it was approved. But I feel strongly about that, and I think Mr. Matt Townsend has told us at the work session that what was that you said, the general ratios or something? There's some technical term that it was taken into consideration when we computed the capacity of the school. So these transfer students are already in there. So it's something that I would at least like to see come back to the board as an option. Michelle?
Can I make a comment in reference to that? If the transfers are being looked at every year anyway, shouldn't we be looking at these 384 and to ensure that the criteria, that they meet the criteria still? I mean, I think staff had stated that they look at them every year, right? So if you do, then we should look at them anyway before, we just approve and say, they're good to go. I mean, if...
Well, that was exactly my point.
Okay.
My point was that we, provided that they meet the criteria, that they be allowed to stay this coming year. But any change in the policy, if the policy is that this will be a one-year approval, and every year we will look at it and see the condition of the school with respect to statistics.
Let me just make sure that we're saying the same thing. The 384, was that 2018, 2019, or is that 2019, 2020?
That's next year, 1920. It was 400 and some for right now. We took out the, what was it,
Is that correct?
113.
2020, 2019, 2020? I'm looking at
Yes,
staff.
that's
Okay,
correct.
all right.
Well, if you don't believe me.
No, no, no,
we'll
I'm
ask
just
the
making,
audience.
no, I'm just making sure, because I thought that they were the current number and not the.
The current number was
yeah.
400 and some, and we subtracted the rising fifth.
Okay, so
rising
the
sixth.
400, they're going to be looked at then, the past transfers.
Well, let
Just
me
wanna
do
make
what
sure.
you've asked me to
That's
do.
all.
Let me bring a policy
Yeah.
forward to you, because I'm here, I see Pam writing down a lot of notes, so we're capturing your comments and we'll obviously give it all consideration.
Okay, that sounds good to me. All right, that'll come back to us for discussion, information again at the next meeting. All right, anything else? Hearing nothing else? The next meeting of the school board is April 23rd at 7 PM, and I wish everyone a happy spring break.